Go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. So I would like to welcome everyone to the virtual Homelessness and Poverty Committee. This is our regular hearing, and I am joined by my colleagues, Mr. Rue and Mr. Harris-Dawson. We have a quorum, and all other members are expected to join as well. Before I turn this over to our clerk to call the roll, I'd like to remind everyone to make sure that they are on mute when not speaking. Mr. Villanueva, if you could please call the roll.
Certainly, sir. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell.
Present.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez. Councilmember Mike Bonin. Councilmember Marquise Harris-Dawson.
Present.
Councilmember David Rue.
Present.
You have 3 members present, sir. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Before I start taking public comment, Mr. Harris-Dawson and Mr. Rue, I understand that the CLA has amendments for items 6 and 7. If they need to read into the record, if we could please do that, Ms. Amatia.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to give the instruction for the public to call in or comment?
We're going to do that in just a moment.
Okay, sir.
Hi, this is Pranita Amatia from CLA. For item number 7, Prop HHH AOC recommendations to be moved with amendment as follows. To approve the site selections for 5 Proposition HHH housing projects at the addresses and within the council districts listed in Table 1 as amended, to remove the project located at 7521 Lancashire Boulevard, and to authorize the General Manager of HCIT to issue conditional financial commitments for 5 Prop HHH housing challenge projects totaling a maximum of $43,575,000, with each project's address and maximum financial commitment as listed in Table 1 as amended, and to authorize the General Manager of HCIT to negotiate acquisition, pre-development, construction, permanent loan agreements for each applicable project identified in Table 1 as amended, subject to the satisfaction of all the conditions and criteria contained in the Prop HHH Housing Challenge RFP. This transmittal and the HCIT award letter, subject to the following condition: that Prop HHH financial project commitments are subject to review and recommendation by the Prop HHH Citizen Oversight Committee and Administrative Oversight Committee before recommendations are forwarded to the City Council and Mayor. And I would also like to note that there is a revised table as provided by HCIT on the record.
You mentioned that that's item 7. Did you also read item 6 in there?
Yes.
Okay, so you've
For item number 6.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry. I will do item number 6 right now. For item number 6, approve the Administrative Oversight Committee's recommendations as amended to remove recommendation F. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Amatia. So we've been joined by Mr. Bonin. I want to thank everyone. Take a moment. What we're going to do is take up to 1 hour to hear from members of the public who wish to comment on items specific to today's agenda, and a minute for general public comment. I'll turn it over to our city attorney to explain the speaking rules to the members of the public who are calling in to speak to our city clerk to provide the necessary information for to call in. Ms. O'Neill, if you could please give the instructions.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you would like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 2 minutes total, and 1 minute for general public comment. We will tell you when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on an agenda item, you will get one brief warning from myself or the chair. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or again stray off topic, the chair will cut you off and you will forfeit the rest of your speaking time, and we will move on to the next speaker. We will take up to 1 hour total for public comment. Finally, for members of the public calling in to speak, as soon as you hear someone address you, you are live in the committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. And Mr. Villanueva, you could read the instructions for the public to call in.
Certainly, sir. The audio for this meeting is broadcast live on the internet at www.lact.org. The live audio can also be heard at 213-621-2489. Again, that number is 213-621-2489. Members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 669-254-5252. Again, the number is 669-254-5252. And use meeting ID number 160-655-3266. Again, the meeting ID number is 160-655-3266, and then press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Before we take our first caller, I want to just convey that this is a very important committee hearing today because we're going to make some significant progress in our efforts to house folks who are experiencing homelessness. The items today, if approved on today's agenda, will result in 9 new housing projects, 8 of which are permanent supportive housing, and 1 is both permanent supportive housing and covenanted affordable housing. This will yield 588 new permanent supportive housing units and 18 covenanted affordable units in the city. Additionally, the project expenditure pipeline on today's agenda provides funding for 13 projects, which include 740 housing units, of which 665 are permanent supportive housing. All right, we're ready to take public comment. Just one more reminder for the callers. Please press *9 to request to speak. All right, I think we're ready. Please bring in the first caller.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Hi, my name is Mimi. I'd like to speak on item 9 and give general comment.
Thank you. You have 1 minute for your item 9 and 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you. For item 9, I would like to comment specifically on the status. As I've heard it, Project Room Key has been pretty much a failure so far. Many who have participated in the program have reported back abuse and feeling more like prisoners during their stay there. In order to have the most effective homelessness committee, the committee needs those who are homeless or have recently been homeless on the actual committee. I think that would help programs like Project Room Key. It's time to accept that, there are people who know more about this than you do and can do a better job. You just have to put aside your pride and do something for the greater good. It's the only way for programs like Project Room Key to work. Moving on to my general comment. There was a violent sweep yesterday in Hollywood, and another is occurring right now in Van Nuys. Why do you allow these things to happen? Why would you rather spend money to harm the houseless community than to help them? Again, you've got to get rent canceled. Over 60% of the city is unemployed right now, and we are about to see a huge amount of more people get evicted and on the streets. You're just making your job harder for yourself. Villanueva is so excited to enforce these evictions again. And again, we're going to see a lot of families on the streets because you're making them choose between rent and groceries. I to just you try going on unemployment and seeing how hard that is and how impossible it is to live off of. If you can't cancel the rent yourself, use your power and your influence to get those who can. I don't understand why we can't cancel the rent.
All right. Thank you so much. Your time is up, caller. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
You get all motherfucking items, general public comment.
So 1 minute for general public comment.
And all the items, faggot. I want my 3 minutes, Popoborski.
Okay, so 1 minute for general public comment and 2 minutes for all of your items. You may start.
Yes. Thank you. Your name is Pharaoh, not O'Farrell. Fake ass motherfucker. Nah. What do we got here? You importing a bunch of motherfuckers into Encino in Studio City. And I heard last night that you taking the COVID patients in too. Encino's being turned into a major motherfucking dumping ground for people you don't like. Now last night I had the displeasure of knowing that Encino is represented by a fat pig-nosed Jew nigga named motherfucking Paul Koretz. And he's a little motherfucker. And then I learned another white motherfucker is involved in Studio City. His name's Paul.
Okay, now you have 2 minutes for your comment on the items. 2 minutes for all the items.
I've been talking, motherfucker. I talk about the project Key Room. It's called Key Room, motherfucker, not Room Key. You get a key and there ain't no room. You just trying to confuse people. Nobody gonna get those apartments. They're not affordable. And you got all these evictions gonna happen. Where are we gonna live? We're gonna live by my barn underneath the Venice Tunnel, underneath the Fall 5 and 10. And then we got Mitch O'Farrell and his motherfucking homeless underneath the 101 and Bellevue. Go take a look at what they doing. 2 motherfucking faggots, formerly homeless faggots, drug addict faggots, paid by the mayor to be fake city council members. You ain't nothing but shit. It's all you do is lie. You wasting the money. You're all a bunch of white niggas. That's all you is. The police are beating the wrong people in Wisconsin. They're to kick your asses for stealing $2 billion of taxpayer money to give a key without a room. A key room ain't a room key. There's no such thing. You're all full of motherfucking shit. You're stealing the money. And we need more FBI indictments of further counsel criminals like yourselves. A 10 a.m. meeting, it's supposed to be at 3 o'clock. 10 a.m., no city council, just a committee of 4 you thieves. Where's the 5th thief? Where's Monica Fat?
Your time is up. Thank you. We'll take the next caller.
Call, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yeah, hi, it's Daniel Gus, all items and general, please.
All right, 2 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general.
You got it. Thank you. First, quickly a compliment for your giving an hour for the public comment. That should be done at all meetings, and Mr. O'Farrell knows that I can be a critic, but I also wanted to offer a compliment on giving an hour to this really important meeting. That said, on the actual agenda items, whether it's the San Fernando Road, the South Berendo Street, my view is this, that the city is making good efforts here. However, we are providing variety kind of housing options, and it's kind of like a whack-a-mole game. It's a good effort, and I know why you're doing it, but I think the city will get more bang for its buck and be able to sequester the problem of homelessness by making homelessness illegal in time, making it illegal to camp out in parks in the street. And basically, my idea is grand. It was from yesterday, is close the LA Zoo. It is a win-win. It'll be easier than the project on Berendo, San Fernando Road, South Main Street, so I am on the agenda item subject. If we were to close the zoo, the city could save tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll save the money from running the zoo. You'll save the money from the employees working at the zoo and move them elsewhere. You can already use the infrastructure at the zoo. So instead of putting them in a housing project, just to stay on topic, at South Berendo, San Fernando Road, etc., I'm staying on topic, you can have a mini city. Does anybody remember the Dome City by the 101 and the 10 freeway? People made fun of it as this kitschy little thing, but it worked. It worked until the government officials didn't want it anymore. If you were to make a large mini city out of the LA Zoo, aside from the sending the animals to the sanctuary, sending the city employees to other jobs in the city, the county, and the state, you can create basically an island where you can help these people, whether or not they need supportive services or not. Some people are just poor, and that's not a crime. Other people need mental health and drug counseling.
Yeah, 1 minute for public comment, Mr. Gus.
Okay, thank you. I'll just continue on that thought. You can basically sequester the problem, making it illegal to be homeless elsewhere in the city, but to have the problem sequestered. You can keep out the drug dealers, you can keep out the riffraff, but for the most part, use the infrastructure at the zoo. It is, I think, what did I see, 3,100 acres or 1,300 acres, something like that. It's an enormous piece of land. It's a win-win, and you'll save money, and whoever is able to make that happen will be LA's next mayor, or maybe 4 years from now. Anyway, that's the thought. I think you're trying hard, but I think you're missing the big picture. Make it illegal to be homeless, but give everybody a single, clean, safe place to go, and that should be the LA Zoo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
I'd like to speak on all items in general public comment.
All right. You have 2 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you. So with regard to the report back on the Homeless Strategy Committee, in looking at the expenditures made on mobile showers and hygiene at Skid Row and in general for the homeless population, I don't see how those expenditures match the conditions on the ground. Showers get taken away by the city. The hand washing stations don't get maintained. And so we see hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars getting spent on these programs when, in fact, on the ground, they are not available to the unhoused. So I don't understand how these expenditures could be so large when the actual effect is so small and punitive. These showers get taken away, especially at Echo Park Lake, for no reason, and water is denied. So I just see a lot of waste in this program instead of a lot of help. When discussing the funds from the Triple H measure, that's taxpayer money that you guys have completely fumbled and wasted in terms of providing the housing and services that was promised when we voted for this bill. This is something that you guys put on the taxpayers instead of having the fortitude to come up with programs yourself. So I don't understand the mismanagement of Triple H funds as well. And with regards to Project Roomkey, there are less than 4,000 rooms operational. When you guys promised 15,000, that is a failure that would be unimaginable, except for the fact that Mitchell Farrell is in charge of homelessness and poverty in this city. So moving on to general public comment. Mitchell Farrell, you said this is a regular meeting of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, but you canceled, I believe, 3 months, 2 months, 2.5 months worth of meetings. So how is that at all regular, you fucking failure? Everybody else on this committee, how can you guys stand back and watch Mitch Farrell let people die of fentanyl in Echo Park Lake, an 18-year-old who had a bright future? Brianna Moore, unhoused Echo Park Lake, dead. Mitchell Farrell, she's fucking dead. So when I look at this committee, I see the wave of evictions coming, and I just wonder who's next. How many more people have to die, Mitchell Farrell? If I get evicted, Mitch, I will haunt your shadow. That's where I will live. You will not know rest until you're homeless next to me. So please, work on getting 600,000 units in this city for people to be housed. The homeless, the people who need housing, and the people who are going to get evicted. Cancel rent, get real housing in this city, get the people who are unhoused into Project Room Key, do the things that you promised you. Fucking failures. So rest in peace.
That completes public comment. Next call.
You won't say it, Mitch.
Next call, please. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council Director for the Northern District. I would like to speak on public comment, general.
All right, you have 1 minute for public comment.
Okay. Basic elements. I'm with the neighborhood councils. There's 99 of us, and we need to know what's going on regarding the homeless, as we now have over 100 homeless in our area. They're not in parks, they're not on the streets, they're on public land, which is unrestricted. So we'd really like to know on all of the tables, include neighborhood council abbreviation along with the council district on all of the tables. It would be nice also to have an interactive map online as to where all of your projects are and the CD and or neighborhood council boundaries on the same interactive page. We're looking also for the monitoring. I participated every January for the last 3 years in the homeless count, and I'd like to have...
Okay, that's your 1 minute, and I'd encourage you to call your council office, whether it's 13-1 or 14 if you're in Northeast.
We're Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. With them.
There you go. Your minute is up, and we're ready to take the next caller. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Comment, all items, bitch, and public comment.
2 minutes for all items and 1 minute for...
I heard you, bitch. That's what I'm talking to. Why is it a problem with Measure H and any measure and bonding grant that are highly contested issue regarding the encroachment, you fucking Indians? Fucking Indians who came into my country of America to fuck it up. In part because the power of the key displaces low-income families and often prevents low-income families from living or moving into affordable neighborhoods, bitch. Displaced at cost of living increases, bitch. Just like that cunt from Oakland, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, fuck you. And regarding urban development, low to high rising rents and living costs, where are the fucking keys, Rue? Where are the fucking keys? Your fucking pimps are pimping COVID-19 like no nigger on this earth has done in the world. This encroachment, this bad idea of rapid gentrification, there is no right for an American to surrender their lives to assholes like you in the case of 220-OR00326JFW. Fucking developments fucking up our lives under Measure H. Did you hear me, bitch? Now I want to go to my general public comment, you cunt. Now to the little faggots and the asshole who sits in the city attorney's office, 42 USC 1983. Fuck you, fucking white niggers too. Why do you suppress the community with your stupid COVID-19 bullshit? California's burning as fast as Biden opens his mouth with Kamala sucking his cock. One end to another like you, O'Farrell. AIDS and faggots that God hates homosexuality is just my opinion. But I agree with God. God hates fucking faggots and homosexuality. 42 USC 1983, God bless Donald Trump for First Amendment and every other 14th, 4th, 5th, and 2nd Amendment to defend our right to be heard and protect it under the color of authority, you fucking faggot. And besides, tell fat mommy
that is
that we miss her.
Make sure that you press star 9 if you wish to speak. Press star 9 if you wish to speak. Thank you. And with that, we're ready for our next caller.
State your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Geronimo, crazy horse. Fuck you, fucking faggot. Dakota, encroachment upon the American people. Fuck you.
That's Armando Herman again. So
fuck you.
We can go to the next caller.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, it's Eric Previn from Studio City, and I'd like to speak on all of the items in a general public comment.
All right, 2 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general public comment.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the kind of robust numbers that you rolled out at the beginning about 588 permanent supportive accommodations coming online and some other kinds as well, a smaller number. With all these projects everywhere. The question that arises is why in Herb Wesson's CD10 does the project cost $580,000 per unit, whereas all the other forms of housing are much less, about $400,000, both of which are astronomical and impossible for an ordinary city resident to understand without feeling as if we're being robbed for obvious reasons. But I just wanted to point to that and ask, why is Herb Wesson's project on New Hampshire so pricey as he runs for county supervisor? As for David Rue and the mobile pit stop program and O'Farrell and the mobile pit stop program and the heat money, Studio City's neighborhood council voted to get a mobile pit stop at the Metro Red Line station near Universal, where David Rue bundles donations from the Universal group. But they have not done it. Metro Los Angeles, where Krikorian and Bonin serve, have simply, ignored, in a way, the request. And it's now the parking lot nearby is overrun, and there should have been a toilet there. And we don't need to build or spend a lot of money because we can unlock the Metro toilet that is locked up and caged like a prison. It's totally inappropriate. And I would ask that you do that quickly. I noticed that one of your, you saved a little money by not having to stick in a service unit by using a facility. That's important. And Room Key, Project Room Key, Studio City at the Sportsman's Lodge, where all of you have been working closely with Richard Weintraub, who is a virtually malfeasant developer who now, under Ben Besley's leadership, has arranged to put hundreds of characters in our local hotel that's being constructed next to a mall. I don't have a problem housing people who need help, but what is the plan and what is the rate? We've asked the county, who pinted it over to the city, so this is an oral PRA. How much is Sportsman's Lodge, who you've made multiple efforts to help under Richard Weintraub, how much are they to rent these rooms on a regular basis going forward from the day it started? That's a reasonable request. The public has an interest in knowing how much is being poured into the pockets of these folks who were pulling transit occupancy taxes out of the drawer, taking it out of my parents and other people who stay at the hotel, and then not paying it to the city until Krikorian cut them a deal in a legal setting that is totally outrageous. #FBI. And so with that, I say thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Good morning. Jaime Garcia with the Hospital Association, representing 35 hospitals in the city, and I'd like to speak on item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. That's 1 minute for item 5.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. So the report before you highlights how 62% of the HEAP dollars have been deployed as of June 30th. It also highlights how bridge home programs that are in operation. Unfortunately, from a hospital discharge planner's perspective, the number of placement options don't seem to be increasing. So I would appreciate, and it would be helpful for at least the hospital community, if the city developed a pathway for how hospitals within the city can access directly the bridge housing placements locations that are being created for individuals that are experiencing homelessness, especially since many report that now post-COVID, so the number of options that are available for placement seem to be far more difficult to come by than the pre-COVID. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
I'd like to just give a general public comment.
All right, 1 minute for general public comment.
I find it interesting that today the County Board of Supervisors is going to have an agenda item coming up. They released their agenda today on their next meeting, September 1st. They will be discussing oversight of funding for LASA. And so even though LASA is run by the city, the county is looking to step in because it recognizes the mismanagement done at the city level, which directly relates to Mitchell Farrell's management of this committee and mismanagement. And I would also like to ask out loud, why have 2 of the most effective staffers from LASA been fired this year? Christy Leverage, Ashley Nicole, they both interact with Mitchell Farrell's Echo Park Lake unhoused population. They tried to make a difference, and now they don't work for LASA anymore. So Mitchell Farrell, homelessness and poverty, why the fuck are you there?
Next caller.
Caller, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
All right, go to the next caller, yeah. Do we have the next caller on the line? It appears we're having some technical difficulties. Let's just hold for a moment to make sure that the lines are open and that we can receive the calls. And Ms. Rodriguez joined us some time ago, so we're all here, all 5 members of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. And we'll just hold until we can verify that the lines are open and functioning.
Is my number still on, or did I get cut off? I'm trying to see. Let me see if he needs. Oh, I think
The meeting on over there. Sorry.
Yours.
key followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself. You are unmuted.
All right. Hey, thanks for bearing with us, everyone. There are no more callers on the queue. Thank you so much. So, colleagues, it looks like Mr. Bonin has left the meeting, but maybe he'll log back on. Colleagues, what I'd like to do is continue item 8. Without objections, we can continue item 8. Are there any objections? Looks like there are no objections. Unless there's an objection from my colleagues, I'd like to move items 1 through 5 on consent. Items 1 through 5 on consent. And then for items 1 through 4, we're approving the CAO reports. If there are any comments or concerns, please let us know. It looks as though there are no objections to that. So, Mr. Villanueva, if you could please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Micho Farrell?
Yes. Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin? I think he's not in the meeting right now. Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson?
Yes.
Councilmember David Rue? Councilmember David Rue? You have 3 ayes, sir, so it passes.
Thank you so much. So next I'd like to move on to item 6. Ms. Amatia, if you could please read the item.
Item number 6, Proposition HHH Administrative Oversight Committee Report relative to Proposition HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Project Expenditure Plan, fiscal year 2020 to 2021, and amending the Prop HHH PEP fiscal year 2018 to 2019.
Wonderful. So, colleagues, I'd like to approve the item as amended, and Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Amatia read the amendments earlier, and unless there are objections, we'll approve the item. All right? Seeing as there are no objections, Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Micho Farrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin? Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson?
Yes.
Councilmember David Rue? You have 3 ayes, sir. It passes.
Thank you. This brings us to item 7. Excuse me. If you could please read item 7 again, amended earlier. Item 7.
Item number 7, Proposition HHH AOC Report relative to the Prop HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Loan Program Commitments for 6 Prop HHH Innovative Housing Challenge projects.
And I do believe we have HSID with us, Housing Community Investment Department, to report on this item. And as you're preparing to make your report, if you could explain why one of the projects out of the 6 is not moving forward, that would be terrific in your presentation. I understand we have HSID on the line. Could someone please weigh in from HSID on this item? Item 7.
Good morning. This is Sean Spear from
Thank you, Mr. Spear.
Yeah, however, Jen Kim would actually be making the presentation, but she may be having some technical challenges.
All right.
I see her. This is Ed Gibson at HSID. I see her online. She just doesn't seem to be.
Hi. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. This is Jen Kim from the Mayor's Office. And just to address that sixth.
Oh, we lost you.
Hello?
Hello, now we can hear you again.
Okay. So that sixth project that's not moving forward, just in the past 2 weeks, they discovered that there was an environmental remediation issue that would add 1 to 2 years to the development timeline. So they're no longer pursuing that project.
Thank you.
So we are requesting site approval and a conditional funding commitment for 5 projects today at a total of $43,575,000. The total development cost, the average total development cost for these projects is $467,824. And the 5 projects will yield a total of 383 units of permanent supportive housing, bringing the program total to 633 units. The average HHH subsidy is $113,773 compared to $140,000 for the regular program. And I'd like to go through each of these projects and sort of highlight the innovative aspects of these projects.
Please do.
So the first project is in CD14 on Whittier Boulevard. And this project is a 63-unit project with a HHH contribution of $97,222 and a total development cost per unit of $423,904. And the innovation here is that this development team is using a revolving construction loan fund to be used for deposits on modular construction. And this is an innovation because typically affordable housing developers don't have access to the high amounts of the modular deposits that are required by the manufacturers upfront. So this is a way to have access to some capital in order to make those deposits. The second project, which is from the same development team, is in CD15 on Beacon Street for a total of 90 units with a HHH contribution of $97,222 and a TDC per unit of $433,303. And the same innovation here, utilizing the revolving construction loan fund. The next project is in CD10 on New Hampshire. This is a larger project at 140 units, and HHH contribution of $140,714 and a TDC per unit of $584,842. The innovation that Bridge Housing is implementing is using opportunity zone financing, which would introduce a new source of funding, and using a new steel gauge framing technology on the construction side that can be easily and quickly put together on site. The TDC for this project is significantly higher than the other projects, but that's due to it being a larger project, the land cost being expensive, and the steel gauge framing, it's using steel, so it's a more expensive material. But the key here is that if they're able to be successful in the opportunity zone financing, again, this would introduce a new source of funding for affordable housing. And their construction model is a replicable model, so the more times they do it, the more cost-effective it'll be. The next project is in CD9 on South San Pedro, a 41-unit project with a HHH contribution of $100,000 and a TDC per unit of $360,199. And the development team, Flyaway Homes, they are using private financing, so non-tax credit financing, and a prefab modular construction typology. The last project is the same development team. This is in CD15 on West Anaheim. This one is 49 units, Triple H contribution of $100,000 per unit, and a total development cost of $344,945,000. And this is the same development team as the previous project. So again, private financing, which will lower the cost associated with tax credit financing, and then the prefab modular, which is faster because they can do the on-site work at the same time. Overall, most of the projects are using by right zoning and taking advantage of different ordinances such as the PSH ordinance, so that they can cut time on entitlements and permitting. So if those are the 5 projects that we're requesting move forward to council and be approved for site approval and conditional funding commitment, if those are approved, then they will have 12 months to secure all of their financing, and then 18 months to complete construction. So I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. And before we go to questions, anyone else have anything to add to the report? It sounds like we don't. But thank you so much for your report, Ms. Kim. Approving HHH Innovative Housing Challenge projects was critical prior to COVID-19, but the world has changed, and it's even more important now. And as a committee, we all know that we have a duty to make sure that this time we continue to improve and move forward items that can help people experiencing homelessness. I do have a couple of questions, colleagues, before I open this up, but the first one is, given the reality of COVID-19 causing a delay in some of the projects, and maybe we've broken through that pause period since we're in month 6 of the pandemic. Are the Prop HHH financial commitments, in addition to other funding streams, going to continue? Are they going to be enough to suffice for the direct projects?
Yeah, so the pandemic has definitely created some delays and some anticipated hardships. The site approval deadline was 4 months from the time the MOUs were executed, but due to the mayor's tolling order in April, that deadline was eliminated. So the 4-month period has ended. We obviously haven't gotten all of our sites, but the development teams are all working very earnestly to secure their sites, and given the conditions, they've been doing a really fantastic job at securing sites as soon as possible. Some of the other impacts are that SIDLAC pushed their bond award from March of 2020 and May of 2020, and HCD also signaled future delays of their NOFAs. There is the uncertainty of when No Place Like Home, which is a funding source that many of the developers cited, just the uncertainty of when that will be released. Another thing to consider is that for the development teams using private financing, investors and banks are sort of showing a limited interest in pursuing new business for 2021. So it remains to be seen how that will impact the development teams. But the funding will move forward, and the development teams will move forward and just do the best that they can given the circumstances.
All right, thank you. Well, it could certainly be worse. Back in March and April, everything was questioned. So I'm very cheered personally that we have 5 projects moving forward when it could have been 0 projects. Now that we have a project that is no longer moving forward, Is there going to be a new RFP process, or is there a different plan with the funding that was to be allocated for that project? In other words, leftover funding for another project, and what would that process be?
So each of the development teams was awarded a reservation of Triple H. So this development team will look for another site to replace the site that fell through.
Okay, so there's the reservation system in place. We haven't had to use that yet. This is the first time, I believe, that we've had to trigger that reservation process.
So each of the projects, there were 7 projects approved in our first transmittal, and so those projects, the development teams used their reservation, and the reservations stay in place until the teams find their site. So it really doesn't impact the total amount of funding available for this program.
Okay, and that funding just goes to the next project?
That's right.
Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, questions? It looks like we have no questions. And just for the record, Mr. Bonin had to go to his Metro Board Committee hearing, which is why he had to excuse himself from this one. All right, so what I'd like to do is approve this item as amended. If you could call the roll, Mr. Villanueva.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Micho Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonin is not in the meeting anymore. So Councilmember Marcus Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Rue. You have 3 ayes, sir. It passes.
Thank you so much. And this now brings us to item 9. Please read the item, Madam CLA.
Item number 9, CAO report relative to the status and occupancy of the Project Room Key program.
Thank you. Colleagues, as a member of the Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 Recovery and Neighborhood Investment, last week we received an update on our COVID recovery funds and FEMA reimbursement plan. Part of that conversation involved Project Room Key. I had some questions that we really haven't gotten to answer during the hearing, so I've requested the CAO's office to transmit a report on the status and occupancy of Project Room Key to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, so we can all have the discussion together. I also understand that we have Lassa here with us today to answer any questions you might have as it relates to Project Room Key. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the CAO to go over this report.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, good morning. Meg Barclay, City Homeless Coordinator in the CAO's office. The report before you, as Mr. O'Farrell mentioned, is in response to a request from some questions that were asked in the Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 Recovery and Neighborhood Investment about Project Room Key status and occupancy. Just a little bit of background, but as you know, Project Room Key is a countywide non-congregate shelter program that provides non-congregate shelter in hotels for persons who are homeless, but also asymptomatic, but also at risk for contracting COVID-19 or having very serious outcomes if they were to contract COVID-19. So those are folks who are age 65 or older, or who have underlying health conditions, and require emergency non-congregate shelter in order to maintain social distancing. Both the city and the county are contracting with hotels for the occupancy agreements for these Project Room Key hotels, and the city, county, and LASA all fund contracts with service providers to operate the hotels, and also then LASA contracts with vendors for food, nursing, and security services. As of August 18th, which was the most recent data that was available to me at the time of this report. A total of 3,942 rooms were operational in 37 hotels countywide. 54% of those rooms are located in the city of Los Angeles, and that's 2,141 rooms. And of those, 1,245 rooms in 6 hotels are under occupancy agreements with the city, and the rest of those are under occupancy agreements with the county. Of the operational rooms countywide, as of August 18th, 3,656 were occupied. That's 93%. That number was 96% for the hotels that are located in the city of LA, and you can see that in the table on the second page of the report. 219 of the rooms, or 6%, were available and unoccupied. That number was 3% in the city of LA. And 67 rooms, or 2%, were offline for repairs and cleaning. That number was actually 1% in the city of Los Angeles. So that summarizes the information that's available in the report in response to the request from Mr. O'Farrell and the ad hoc committee. And also, though, anticipating there may be broader questions about the Project Room Key program, Amy Perkins and Jeff Proctor are also on the line from WASA to answer any questions you may have beyond the scope of this report.
Appreciate that very much. And so we can just dive into some questions. You gave the stats and the percentages and the numbers, but can you boil it down to one, someone on the panel, one answer, and that is, has the number of Project Room Key rooms utilized by people experiencing homelessness increased or decreased on average?
I would personally, just having watched these stats over time, but also I think Jeff may have some insight into this as well. It has definitely gone up over time. This program began in early April, I believe. And the fact that we've been able to execute this many agreements with this many hotels in a pretty short period of time. Most of the hotels have now been operating for at least a month. We've been at this level. There's one hotel that came online in the Valley a couple of weeks ago, but that was the most recent one. But most of these hotels have been online for at least a month now. So it was a very, very fast ramp up. But I don't know, Jeff, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Jeff Proctor, Associate Director of Performance Management for WASA. So each of the hotel, our first hotel came online, I believe, very late March, like March 31st or so, and we have 36 up and running now as of today. Each of the hotels, depending on the size, we were able to get that hotel filled either within a period of like 2 to 3 days in some instances for a smaller site, and then others there was a longer ramp up period. Where it might take about maybe 10 days or so to completely occupy the hotel. But our occupancy has been, for those that have been, like once they've met sort of essentially like full occupancy, they've stayed very close to full occupancy. Occasional blips when there have been public health notices, where we've limited intake because of concerns around COVID symptomatic people on site, but usually those notices will get lifted usually within a matter of a few days, and we return to taking intakes and return back to full occupancy. But hovering in that sort of 95% occupancy range, I would say, pretty consistently.
Right, and so that, by any other standard, is a success. So thank you and congratulations on that. Question, what types of services in general are being offered at these Project Room Key sites? Can you just go over?
Sure, this is Jeff Proctor from WASA. I'll get us started. So each hotel was designed to have a homeless service provider on site providing the day-to-day operations and service coordination, so ensuring that there's consistent and ongoing delivery of services for everyone who enters the program. So all of our sites have a primary service provider attached to oversee the operations. In addition to that, we have procured meal services and nursing and security to make sure that people are fed and safe, and that with our nursing vendor that they receive health screens 3 times per day to ensure that people who enter are asymptomatic and they continue to be asymptomatic, and that in the event there are persons who exhibit some sort of health concern, that we're able to triage them appropriately to the appropriate level of care. In addition to that, we've also procured some mobile medical and mental health services that are coming by and doing additional medical and mental health services for folks on site. We've been able to work with our county partners to have GPSS come out and do assessments for connections and eligibility for different kinds of public benefits. We have had Intercity Law, who's our primary legal services vendor or provider, come out and do assessments for folks enrolled in the project to see who may have need for assistance with clearing up things on, as we're starting to go into the rehousing phase of Project Roomkey, starting to work with people to identify any sort of legal barriers that a person might have for reentering housing. So we've been able to have attorneys essentially get out and start working with our participants to clear up anything that might prevent them from rehousing. So some of the services that are available there on site.
Great. And has county mental health been involved in terms of the casework to help, and then public health for that matter too, help address mental health issues and substance addiction issues?
We do have Department of Mental Health that makes rounds. So they've deployed their folks to come and visit our sites, assess participants, make sure that people are still connected to treatment plans. And we do have a pilot with SAPC, Substance Abuse and Prevention Control, that division of public health, who's also working with our sites to ensure folks who need substance abuse treatment have access to it.
And are they making the rounds at all of the locations?
I believe so. I know that they are, I believe it's right now it's a combination of sites where they are embedded, where they're making regular and consistent service, and that they're also, as needed, will make rounds to pop into other sites where we find issues.
Great. And next time we have this conversation, if you could come back with just a full accounting of the attention paid to substance addiction issues and mental health services as it relates to every single location, that would be terrific. And speaking of transitioning, is there data available for how many people enrolled in Project Roomkey have transitioned into permanent housing?
I believe so. I don't know, Amy, do you want to speak towards the recovery house and the rehousing?
Yeah, hi, this is Amy Perkins, Director of the Housing Central Command at LASA. Hi, Councilman. We do have data on exits into PSH, and I'm sorry that I can't give you the exact number right now. We haven't seen, that number's not super high, but we do have almost 450 people who are matched to permanent supportive housing. So that means all of them either have a unit or a voucher that they'll be using to get inside. Additionally, from the population of people in Project Roomkey, we've increased their prioritization in our PSH matching. So those that have a COVID high-risk flag have a higher likelihood of getting matched to permanent supportive housing because they have this higher acuity and vulnerability as a result of their COVID high risk, which can be because they are over 65 or have an underlying medical condition as defined by the CDC. And we also have extensive enrollments in rapid rehousing, so we've already seen exits to rapid. And then, of course, we recently demobilized our first county site, which was in Lomita. We did very, very happily, we can report that not one person was exited to the street. We did have to leverage a lot of interim housing transfers as the people, all of whom have housing plans. Every one of them has a housing plan, but we know it takes a little time. So we're very excited to report that we have contracts prepared to go out with our county dollars in September to our providers. And then we look forward to the funding we'll get from the city, however the roadmap moves forward, and we'll get additional contracts to providers to provide even more housing placements out of PRK.
Fantastic. is it our collective mission to make sure that everyone, all clients in Project Roomkey, have a housing plan before a motel or hotel is decommissioned? Is that part of our mission?
That is part of our mission, Councilman, which is why LASA is facilitating twice weekly demobilization calls with every provider from 6 weeks out of their closure date. So we literally case conference every single client twice a week, and so that we can know exactly where the best intervention is for them when they leave. Of course, we have our existing framework of resources now, and we are ridiculously excited for the new resources coming in through our city and county partners so that we can elevate our placements into permanent supportive housing. We're really looking to expand our access to fair market rent units. We have a lot of landlords reaching out to us right now. We've expanded our partnership with LeaseUp, which is the program that we fund to identify new units in the community, identify new landlords willing to accept subsidies. And LeaseUp would report they're actually having trouble keeping up with the number of landlords that are reaching out to them. So we have expanded their funding so that they can hire more locators to follow up on all these leads. And then our goal is to quickly match the people from Project Roomkey who we know are looking, we know what kind of intervention they need. We have the housing available, we move them in. So that's really what we're ramping up under our whole recovery rehousing model that we've talked to the city and county about.
That's just great news. Yeah, go ahead, Meg, sorry.
I'm sorry. Just to remind you all, there's a report that is pending before the ad hoc committee, again, so you'll see it, Mr. O'Farrell, for the Homelessness Road Map. And it includes a recommendation for 3,000 placements through what we call in the report rapid rehousing or shared housing, because that's just sort of the terminology that we use with the city. But the idea would be that funding be used consistently with what Amy was describing. So and available to the populations that are a part of our agreement with the county. But a lot of those, the folks that are in that population, it includes people who are over 65, people who are otherwise vulnerable to, including vulnerability to COVID-19. And so that's that, just to connect those dots, that's the funding, the proposed funding that's currently pending council approval that Amy was referring to in her comments.
Fantastic. And, I'm going to make another sort of connection here. When you come back to COVID-19 ad hoc, could you expand on the lease-up program? Because I'm really delighted to hear that landlords are approaching you eager to make use of that program to house people who are currently at Project Roomkey. That's really terrific. I'd like to hear more about that as soon as we can.
Thank you, sir. I'd love to present on that. Councilman, do you mind if I just highlight a couple other amazing partners we've had in PRK? So Please. We've had the Department of Social Services has been going out to the sites as well to match people to benefits through DPSS. We have a pilot with the DMV so that we can expedite people's getting of their ID without them having to go to one of the buildings. So that's been really amazing. We've seen 2-week turnarounds on getting ID in hand. And then additionally, we have our different legal partners who've made themselves available to the Project Roomkey residents to help them overcome any barriers from their criminal history that may prevent them from getting inside. So I really wanted to call out those really strong partners in PRK.
That's just fantastic. Really, really terrific. Congratulations. And you all are to be commended for this really good stuff.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. All right, so colleagues, let's open this up. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, and thank you for bringing this forward. I actually want to thank LASA, too, for their work. The timeliness of Project Roomkey was instrumental in helping to facilitate the cleanup of an encampment in my district of 67 individuals. And I think it's emblematic of when we talk about housing and what the dynamics are. There becomes large-scale communities, if you will, that want to remain together. And it's one of the contributing factors that I believe has impeded some of our efforts historically with helping to facilitate folks from the street into shelters. So the availability of this, I think, has been very important. I think you guys have done a really great job. To those that misrepresent the success of these efforts, shame on you, because in fact, it's easy to share a false narrative, and we hear it a lot in public comment. But the reality is that it has been a success, and the availability of some units is for both the maintenance, the needs for maintenance of those locations of those rooms, and moreover, the ability to facilitate more individuals being taken off the street and placed into these facilities. It's my hope that through their introduction, I know in my case with Paxton and Bradley, where we did have some that resisted initially their participation and inclusion in CES out of more than, I think it was over a year worth of outreach. As a result of Project Room Key, we now have everybody completely in CES, which enables us to facilitate a pathway for them to matriculate into more permanent housing opportunities. So I want to thank you all for, look, this is, you're building, you're flying the plane as you're building it, and it's been incredible. But I think it's one of the silver linings out of this pandemic that we can all talk about. And I truly am. I've seen the benefits of it. I think it's really an example and a model of, I think, what is going to be our next big task, and that's with the Judge Carter ruling of how we then facilitate that effort as well. But, to everybody, the CLA, LASA, everyone that's been involved, or CAO rather, Meg, our forever guiding light there too. Just thank you all. It's, I think it's, again, we have to talk about the success of these programs, and we have, and shame on us for not sharing that narrative, because, again, the false narrative that individuals are continuing to attempt to perpetuate doesn't help anyone for those that proclaim themselves to be activists and supporting the needs of the individuals who we are, in fact, housing. So I want to say thank you all, because, again, we were able to care for an entire community out of my district as a result of this program. And I look forward to this being the continued model. And, and thanks to the state, frankly, for the resources that we need. This is not something that we've ever claimed that could be achieved with our limited resources alone. And we do require the support of all levels of government for us to address the problem. This is not just a city issue. This is city, this is county, this is state, and it's the federal government. And so we need to make sure that everybody is doing their part to play a role in helping to solve homelessness, that this is a shared responsibility and it doesn't fall on the back of any one particular entity. But I wanted to make that comment. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think the only way we were able to get this, that LASA and city and the county were able to get this up and running as quick as it was the fact that the state was supportive, that we had FEMA had to provide special approval for non-congregate shelter as a reimbursable expense, and they did that very quickly. But we did have support from HUD to get that approval. We've had support at all levels of government, and this is what can happen when we have that support, and it's not just seen as a city, the city having to take on because we're the closest, spatially to the problem. So I think that I couldn't agree with you more, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. It is a success story. This is a bona fide success story. No one is claiming that it's perfect. No one is claiming that we don't need to do much more, but it's a bona fide success story. And it's getting covered a little bit in the media, but hello, LA Times, are you listening? All right, with that, Mr. Harris-Dawson or Mr. Rue? Mr. Harris-Dawson. Oh, either or.
No, ditto. It's all yours, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this up, and thank you for this extensive report. I did have a few questions. Do these numbers include the 3 state-owned trailer sites located on Recreation and Parks property, including like the one in Friendship Auditorium in my district?
That is a good question. Actually, no, these are just the hotels, but those are being occupied as Project Roomkey. So I will get that data for you and get that back. Sorry, I apologize. That's a really good.
So this is just Project Roomkey, hotels and motels, and this doesn't include also our rec centers then, right?
Right, because those are congregate shelter sites. They're not operated, but the trailers are being occupied according with the same population as Project Roomkey. And so that was an oversight. I should have included that in here. So
that's great. Yeah, so just more numbers. So I think Lassa said that they didn't have this number, but or maybe I didn't hear it correctly. But total housed. I know you said we have 3,942 rooms in the county, but do we have a number of total housed overall, including Project Roomkey and people who's moved out? And that number disaggregated between those who did go through Roomkey and now is in some sort of permanent housing?
I don't have that number right here with me, Councilmember. Can I provide that to the committee afterward? This is Amy Perkins from LASA.
Great. And because the last I heard it was over 6,000. Or it was about 6,000, and I'm pretty sure we're beyond that now. Does that sound about right?
For permanently housed in the last couple months?
For total, currently in Roomkey and housed, or moved out of Roomkey.
Oh, that could very likely be true, yes.
Okay. So that would be a great number to have. And if you could disaggregate it between, if it's possible to disaggregate that is, between in the city versus the county overall.
Yep.
That would be a great number to have.
Okay.
And I think you went over this, but just to reiterate, when do the contracts expire for the 6 city-leased hotels?
So this is Meg Barclay. We're actually working with the mayor's office and LASA on coming up with the kind of right schedule on that sort of balances cost and the need for the units and the need to ensure that we're not discharging people to homelessness. And so there is a schedule, but that's kind of under discussion right now, but it's not final yet. There's a lot of different moving parts that we're trying to evaluate and make sure that we don't accidentally shoot ourselves in the foot.
Okay. So whether it's these 6 hotels, motels, or any other hotels or motels, is the city trying to attempt to purchase any of these hotels or motels?
We did just submit a number of applications to the state on the Project Homekey program, which is, as you know, the state had put out $550 million of CRF plus another $50 million of their general fund for city or something along. Sorry, I may have gotten the total number wrong there. But for cities and counties across jurisdictions across the state to apply for funding to purchase hotels, not necessarily Project Roomkey hotels, but with the idea of continuing a number of hotels or other residential structures under, in the same vein as Project Roomkey. And so, yeah, there are a couple of Roomkey sites that are included in those applications. We don't have a determination yet on the from the state on the status of those applications and which ones will be approved. And so the sites themselves aren't public since they're real estate transactions, and we're trying not to start some kind of a bidding war against ourselves. Right. But yes, I can say, yeah, there are.
But there are hotels and motels for sale right now?
Yeah. We were surprised at how many hotels were actually willing to sell.
Mm. And I know we have various motions in the city council for first right of refusal. Even before that motion passes, I guess we're competitively in the market, and they're willing to sell to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes.
Great. That's it for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this update, and thank you to the CAO, CLA, and LASA for giving us this report. And love to get, and you guys have been giving us numbers and giving us updates, but As much data you guys could give us, the better, so we could disseminate it to all of our neighborhoods and communities. Because I know these numbers are constantly changing. So thank you.
LASA is working on a number of dashboards right now that are pretty, going to be a great way to push that information out to people. So maybe when those are ready to go, they could come and present them to your committee.
And I know the challenge of disaggregating the data, but at least if you could do it for the city and the county, because that would be, at least that part would be, to the best of your ability, that would be a great number to share. Thank you.
We've been looking at early proto-beta versions of those and have been passing that message forward as far as city, plus down to the council district level. So hopefully we'll be able to, I think you guys will be impressed.
Well, I'm not too hopeful about the council district part because that might be too narrow because to actually quantify the number. So just the city portion would be great because this is, as many of my colleagues said, it is a citywide issue. And success in one neighborhood or one council district does not necessarily equate to overall success in our homeless numbers. So all I'm asking for, council data would be great, but I would be highly cautious with those numbers because as we've seen, numbers always change. So, but at least a citywide number would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Root, to that point, and Meg, we are just sleuthing 24/7 on hotels that might be willing to utilize Project Room Key and coming up really empty. It's really hard in some parts of town to find a hotel where the owner is willing to enter into this kind of agreement. So it is a citywide approach. Anyway, Mr. Harris-Dawson, any comments or questions? We're good?
No comments or questions. We're good. I think everything that should be said has been said, but I do applaud you, Mr. Chair, and encourage however we can do it, getting the word out, because it's just people feel like nothing's happening, and there's obviously a lot happening, and we just need to do a good job getting that out.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. I mean, even some of the information about our bridge home sites. We've housed 26 people permanently out of Schrader, but yet there was a claim yesterday that nothing is happening and it's a failure, but quite the opposite. In fact, it has the highest success rate of any bridge home site so far. So there are stories to tell, and there's the truth to get out, and that's old information. So it's probably even a better success rate now, all these weeks later, than it was when I first heard this information. So there's a story to tell, and it's going to be up to us to tell it and say so in a public forum like this. So all good stuff. So colleagues, we're going to receive and file this report. We're going to keep the dialogue going and keep the updates going. And there'll be some form of this information boomeranging between the COVID-19 ad hoc and then this committee and probably the housing committee as well. So the information is going to keep coming and the work will be keep getting generated. So thank you so much. All right, so you bet. Thanks, Meg. Thank you so much, Amy, and the whole entire team. So I guess we need to call the roll, Mr. Villanueva?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell?
Yes, aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin? Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson?
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew?
Yes.
The item is received and filed, sir.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. You have something to add?
No, Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask, sorry, I had some technical difficulties earlier. I don't know if you wanted to take a revote so I could vote yes on the other items, if that's possible.
Yes, sir. Items 1 to 5 was approved on consent. Items 6 and 7 was approved as amended. Item 8 was continued. Are you okay with that, Councilmember David Drew?
I think he wants to be counted because he was in the room but not at his desk. So whichever items we took the vote on when he wasn't in his seat, I think is what he wants to hear a revote on.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so for items 1 to 5, but that was approved on consent. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin? Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew.
Yes.
Your vote is now counted, sir. Now for items 6 and 7, it was approved as amended. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin. Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew.
Yes.
Item 8 was continued, and item 9 you were able to vote on. Item 9, so we should be good. Your vote
We're
was
good. Thank you. All right. Before we continue, and I don't think we have anything else, but before we continue, since we're on the theme of making sure that people have the adequate information, something else the LA Times has been covering extensively is the Judicial Council of California letting their action that they took back in April expire on September 1st. But what they're not covering is the fact that Los Angeles City residents still have the same protections that existed before the Judicial Council took action, and that will exist well after September 1st. So what I'd like to say for the record, and again, LA Times, are you listening? Earlier this spring, the Los Angeles City Council adopted ordinances that prevent landlords from evicting tenants during the local emergency period if loss of income is attributed to COVID-19, as long as the tenant notifies the landlord in writing each month. The city can provide the tenant a simple one-page form to assist in documenting the claim. 3 months after the emergency order is lifted, tenants whose income and ability to pay their full rent because of the pandemic also will then have up to 12 months to repay what is owed. Our ordinance also prohibits no-fault evictions. In other words, a tenant who is not engaged in criminal or destructive behavior, including harm to other residents or the property. Even renters who have unauthorized tenants and pets cannot be evicted because of COVID-19. Residents in the city, regardless of immigration status, are covered by the city's protections that this council adopted back in late March. Even when the California Judicial Council enacted its emergency rules in April, a landlord in California would still file an unlawful detainer with the courts, but not in Los Angeles. And after September 1st, that landlord in California is allowed to serve that unlawful detainer and move forward with eviction proceedings, but not in Los Angeles. That's because in our ordinance, it is unlawful for a landlord in the city to move forward with eviction proceedings. If an action is unlawfully filed, the tenant will have both a private right of action against the landlord and an affirmative defense in such an action. That is the law. These protections existed before the Judicial Council took action, and they are in place even when it lapses on September 1st. The City of Los Angeles has enacted some of the strongest renter protections in the state. They will remain in place until the local emergency order is lifted. The state should absolutely take action, but they have not. The last bill standing in Sacramento, Assembly Bill 1436, introduced by David Chu this legislative session, is modeled after the action this city council took back in late March. All other state bills previously introduced for COVID-19 related rent and or mortgage have been tabled or scrapped this session. So, Los Angeles renters, what I want you to understand is you still have the protections. Furthermore, the council is very likely to adopt funding allocations for renters whose landlords are still unlawfully and unscrupulously trying to proceed with an eviction after September 1st. We'll have legal counsel provided by funding that we're allocating for you. So I just want to make sure that's really clear, because the articles keep conveying that renters in the city of Los Angeles have no protections after September 1st, and that is patently untrue. Much more work is to be done. We hope the feds act, and we hope that they'll take into consideration the lending and banking industries and give mortgage relief for properties who own and rent, and then relief for renters to pay their rent to those mortgage holders, so that we keep people housed that we keep mortgages sound and whole, and that we can get through this pandemic. As Ms. Rodriguez said in her comments earlier, it's going to take action from every level of government. We've always known that. And so to anyone listening in Los Angeles, please do not think that you're going to get evicted legally in LA after September 1st. Even if the Assembly or Senate or Governor does not act, you still have those protections. And with that, Mr. Villanueva, do we have anything else before this committee?
The desk is clear, sir.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.